Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law on MyFM 101.3 in the Holliston Hub, formerly known as HCAT, with your host, Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group.
Yes.
I'm John Droyan. This is Money and the Law. We are the show that
Preeminent is the word you're looking for.
For many years, we have been bringing you the simpler version of all things that have to do with the law, especially estate planning, because that's kind of our wheelhouse. I say our because I've been working with a lawyer long enough now where I'm like, listen, I can't actually practice law, but I sure can talk about it.
I sure can.
Like I think I do.
I can threaten it.
Yeah, and of course we talk about money because at the end of the day, that's why they call it money.
Yes, that's why everybody loves it.
Everybody loves it because they call it money. So how are you doing?
Doing well. Riding a bit of a wave today. I think I was chit-chatting with you.
Hold that thought.
Right.
Yeah, because
Right.
we're going to talk. We have a lot of things to cover. I mean, we've been gone for a while.
We have been gone for a while.
Tommy,
We have
how
a lot
you
to
doing?
catch up on.
Tommy's back.
Some of it could even be money and law stuff.
It's
it doesn't all have
unlikely.
to be. Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to bring my guitar. I have a new song. I mean, next week I wanted to. I think we're bringing. I'm going to get you. I'll badger you.
Figure it out. All right, figure it out.
But yeah, we have a lot to get caught up on. There's been a bit of a sabbatical, some time away. Some people got sick.
Yeah, we've had some illness.
There's been nothing serious.
No, everybody's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we've had a bit of a break. It's been
a minute. It's been a minute, as the kids say.
And it's funny because every time this happens, every time there's like a break in action, like an extended break in action, when I drive back in, I'm like, oh, that's why I want to. You get that feeling like I missed this.
As soon as you roll into the studio, as soon as the red light goes on, it all comes together.
Is there a red light?
There's a red light.
It all comes together. Right
that's
there.
right. That's right.
It. Yeah.
As soon as the red light comes on, you say to yourself, "This is what I'm in it for.
This is why
I do what I do."
That, and of course,
this is it.
Yeah, so and I know that on the Holliston Hub from that end because I'm involved with that organization.
Sure. Yes, you are.
They are hurting.
Yeah.
They are hurting over there because this show hasn't been produced. They're like,
it's a black hole.
They're just doing. I think they're doing reruns of like the Cosby Show or something like that.
Some have said like, oh my God, when you guys are not on the radio, it's kind of like when Seinfeld went off the air. We didn't know what to watch.
Yeah, we just stopped watching.
Yeah, a lot of people have felt that way. I've heard that from a lot of folks.
A lot of people cut their cable after that, right?
Yeah, a lot of people they kick their radio. They just
so the good news is we're back and we're
deep breaths, everybody. Deep breaths, everybody.
We have a lot. I mean, and since it's funny because since the break in action, it's probably been 4 weeks, maybe more.
A little more.
A
couple things have happened.
Couple things have popped up on the.
A couple things are going on.
Screen.
Yes.
So we have a lot to cover. But first things first, let's talk about. So it's a beautiful day today, as we're
always
as gorgeous outside as the weather is improving. Spring is upon us for sure.
But we had a run there, man. It was like gray and gloomy 5 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
The sun basically just talk about like we weren't around and neither was the sun, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of
those kind of go hand in glove.
Is it a coincidence? I
don't know, but it was like
unlikely.
Man, it was brutal.
But with the good weather comes golf season.
Yes.
And so you had something we were talking about in the elevator coming up. Let's hear it.
Well, I could tell after a wonderful season indoor at Mulligan's Golf Simulator over in Natick. Fantastic for anybody who's looking to get some extra swings.
Not a sponsor, but ideally could be.
Could be a sponsor.
Actually, he can be our unofficial indoor golf sponsor right now, until he makes it official.
Yeah, until he makes it makes a financial commitment.
He could. Well, if he wants to grow.
That's right.
That's
great point. Great point. But for anybody who's obviously a fan of the game, wants to work on the game, Mulligan's over in Natick, mulligans.com. I think it's mulligansgolf.com, but
it's rain or shine. It's a rain or shine kind of thing, right?
It's a rain or shine event over there. The weather's always great, and it's a phenomenal way to get some extra swings in, and that way when you hit the course, you hit the course ready.
You're ready.
That brings us to our topic.
The muscle
right now.
memory is there.
That's right. You've had a club in your hands more than just sitting there watching TV, and so I have a regular Tuesday golf match, if you will, commitment scheduled every Tuesday up at Pinecrest in Holliston. This happens never. I'm going to talk about this one time and only one time. I'm usually much more humble than this, but
great.
But that's right. But last night probably shot the round of my life over there for 9 holes, and I was on cloud 9, Tommy. Cloud nine.
And I mean, did you close the place down? Like, what did you like not want to leave? Like, this is just too much magic.
I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to go away.
Speaking of cheers, right?
Yeah. I mean, nobody carried me around on their shoulders, but it was just the ability to say, you know what? I think this is, we were joking about the Caddyshack scene where, the good Lord would never ruin a round like this, one of those deals. And that's kind of how it went. It all came together.
And you know what? At the end of the day, that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I can do this. This is my game. I can. So the next step is what? Now it's like, oh, we're going to do a golf, like one of those real golf weekends where we're going to play 36 holes a day for 4 days in South Carolina.
Nope. Never. Nope. Nine and done. Nine and dine. Nine and dine.
Right.
That's it for me. Nine and dine. So next week I'll shoot.
Thank you, good night.
Next week I'll shoot 9,000 and it won't even matter.
It's like a Michael Jackson concert. It's like hour and 10 minutes.
Yep.
People screaming. Nope.
But I'm going to catch some grief, I'm sure, from the guys I play golf with. But you know what, guys? It's my microphone today, and I get to talk about whatever I want.
It's funny. They're not here.
And that's what I get to talk about. So that was it. So fantastic.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thank
great.
you.
Because I know you, well, I mean, all kidding aside, you've been working hard.
Well, hold on. All these guys that I play with, they've all been working hard, and they're not telling anybody. There's a lot of covert lessons going on, and everyone's like, oh, I don't know how I suddenly straightened out my swing. I have no idea. Must have just been all those YouTube videos I watched.
Watching.
Right? They're all taking lessons. They're all committing to it. Yep, that's right. And all of a sudden.
It sounds, well, again, and I get some reports, I've had, I got my ear on the ground. I get some reports, and it seems that it's a little more competitive than kind of the average. Yeah. And there's a couple people I'm not going to name, like Sawyer's or Campersall. Are those names? I don't even know.
Just name
words.
Words.
They sound like cities in some Norwegian country.
Yep. Those guys were in the indoor golf league at Mulligan's, and they were putting up some big numbers.
Yeah, well, they're good players, and they like to tell you, they like to refer to themselves as good players, and then actually tell the other people how good they are.
Yep, just ask them. Yep.
Yeah. So I heard that was getting kind of under the skin of some of the more kind of conservative, like more quiet, humble players.
It's funny. This started like a couple of years ago. Where, it's just all fun and games, ha ha ha, ho ho ho, and then we were all heading down south for a little golf trip. And all of a sudden, everybody started to really work on their game. It was really funny. All at once, all of a sudden, everybody was in disguise at the Pinecrest driving range, so that nobody would know. Some guys got the fake nose and mustache on, so you wouldn't know who was there practicing. That's right. That's right. A lot of this was going on. So now everyone's been kind of caught in the act. So everyone knows.
It's all out in the open, and now it's real. Now it's the Pro-Am, right?
Now it's real. Now it's real.
Good.
So great guys, great group of guys. A lot of fun every Tuesday night, and like I said, last night it just kind of all came together.
Are there spectators at this now? Because now I feel like some of the fans maybe
should be. Probably. We're on the 18th hole. It should be. Make it a little like the the Open in Phoenix? Phoenix Open, is that what it is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Waste Management.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Stop building some stands over there at the 18.
Yep. Crew.
So
okay.
That's it. So I'll never talk this glowingly about golf ever again. I had my one day in day in the sun.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
That's it. All done.
So lots been happening. We probably should talk about some of the market activity.
I think we do. I think we do. We put it off as long as we can.
Talk about some of the, and because everybody of course is asking you. Everybody's asking us like, hey, what's going on? Why is this happening? I have some opinions on it, right? I have some.
So we're taking a break, and then we're going to dive into that. Is that what I'm hearing?
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, but there's some other. I want to talk about. I want to get caught up on everything else too. But I think let's
get this out of the way. Let's get this out of the way. This needs immediate attention.
There is an elephant in this room.
This needs immediate attention.
To discuss. So,
as two people who profess to be professionals in this area, we probably need to have this conversation.
We're going to bring guitar next week. Probably not going to talk about it too much, but today we're going to talk about it. And you know what? We're going to set the record straight. So don't go away if you're driving. Keep driving. Turn your radio up a little bit. Keep your eyes on the road. 10
You'll be able to find this later. Don't worry. It's not out there for one time. It's out in the world forever. You'll be able to go back and get it.
So you want to stick around and hear this. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Maine for Financial. Tom is on the bag today, and we are back in the studio. We've been away for a little bit.
Work.
Everyone's been a little under the weather. It's funny, we should probably just all plan on getting sick at the same time. It would make it a lot easier rather than us all getting sick one at a time.
I think that's how they do it in the pros. I think that's how the big guys do it.
Next time somebody announces they're sick, we all run over, have a measles party like we're down in Texas, and we see what happens, right? That'd be fantastic.
Everybody gets a little walking pneumonia, and next thing you know,
and then we're back at it.
We have the stand-in crew.
Yeah.
All right.
So prior to the break, we were talking about, let's dive in and talk about the market, which coincidentally is up today.
Yeah, so it's Wednesday. We record this on Wednesday, so
Yep,
it's
so it's
Wednesday.
market update.
Yeah,
Market
so,
update.
Yeah, so it's right. It's a 20.
It's up almost 3%.
I love it. Do clients ask you? They say, "Hey, listen. So on Friday, when do you think the best time is to buy? Because usually it starts off a little slow in the morning, but then by the afternoon it starts to pick up, and then it starts to it's going to go one way or the other after.
I want to
lunch.
sell this closed-end mutual fund. What's the best time to do it on a Friday? Well, you can do it anytime you want, right up until 3:59. You're going to get the same price.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's funny. Like, because people say, so is Wednesday's usually a good day, and you're like,
Market up, market down.
Wednesday.
Months too. They always ask them, what's the best month? Yeah, they go through and look at all
Right,
the
you
statistical
get the
numbers. What's a
month.
great month? Yep.
So
now we're getting months. Now we're getting days. Now we're getting down to hours. Like, we're really threading this needle.
And again, so that discussion, and I don't really, there's not, I don't give that any real weight or anything like
sure.
that. But that discussion is kind of based on numbers in the past. It's kind of based on statistics. It's based on trends. It's based on all that stuff that people in the market and people in the business, they kind of look at and they say, well, maybe that's something, maybe it is. But at the end of the day, there's nothing ever 100%, right? There's nothing ever, but one of the things that these trends get based on, or that these kind of market kind of pathways that they go on, it's based on not predictability, and this is an important thing, because the market's not predictable.
Right.
You can't predict the
Right.
market.
No,
one
you
can.
can't. No.
And people say, well, listen, I don't want to get into the market right now because it's so unpredictable. Well, that's no different than it's ever been.
That's today. That's 6 months ago.
Yeah, but one of the things, what I like to refer to, with particularly when it comes to the market, and particularly when it comes to the big players like the countries, the global, is I like to refer to reliability. So there's a difference between predictability and reliability. And
Well, I would also say that the market is unpredictable, but there's a certain predictability to the way certain individuals,
the players,
might
right?
behave, and then the market can kind of make some guesses around that. And the market doesn't like completely unpredictable scenarios. There's a rhythm to how things kind
That's
of
a good
go,
word.
right? So, for example, like most recently, like this week, right? The most of the market doesn't expect that a certain leader of the free world would wave around a threat that he has absolutely zero ability to execute on, but his unpredictable nature might just let him try to do that. That's weird. That's weird. That's stuff that the market can't really wrap its head around because it's not supposed to happen. Because it can't happen.
Well, because based on the laws and the structure of the way things operate right now.
I mean, the way our government is organized,
the government,
way our financial system is organized,
the way that our Constitution and the federal law is organized. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed. The president's not allowed to fire the chair, the Fed chair.
Correct.
He's not allowed to do that. So
the chairman of the Fed has a level of independence for all the reasons that make financial sense that you would expect the chairman of the Fed to have financial independence, right?
Yeah.
He has a mandate, and his mandate is to manage the monetary system.
Yeah, and remember, this is not just that affects the United States. This affects all over the world. Affects everybody in the world.
It affects the global economy.
Right. So if you have one political entity or one person or one country or what that is going to influence this particular person, that's kind of all the things that you're not supposed to do in the market.
Correct.
That's called market manipulation. That's called doing things that are affecting the stock market. And for those of you who are maybe a little unclear on this, so the chairman of the Fed, his primary responsibility is to manage the interest. It's to manage the money flow.
Manage inflation. Yes.
Right. So and the way the money flow is managed is by either raising or lowering or adjusting interest rates. So you adjust that federal interest, and then that interest rate is then based off all the other interest rates that are affected throughout the entire, not just the United States, but also through the entire world.
Well, and it basically drives the debt market.
Exactly. And the debt market, when you talk about the debt market, it's like, okay, so if I want to buy a house and that house costs $500,000, I don't have $500,000 in my bank account to buy this house, but I want to buy it. So what does the financial system allow me to do? That banks will loan me that money,
Yep.
and then I can purchase the house as long as I promise, as long as I have good standing credit, and I have the capability to pay that loan back,
Yes.
right? And
by the way, if that rate that you're getting on that loan is reasonable and fits within your own personal budget, then that way you know when I buy a house, I can afford to pay this much money. And then by the way, I just bought a house, which means I got to go buy a whole bunch of other stuff. So off I go to Jordan's Furniture, off I go to Home Depot, I got to buy a lawnmower, I got to buy lawn chairs, I got to buy yard chairs.
Those guys should
all
definitely-
this stuff. It's all, right? But so that's if your rate is whatever your rate is and you can afford it. And then if you're messing with the debt structure of the government and you start playing around with those rates, everything becomes unpredictable.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to this before. So if there's going to be if there's going to be a break in that rhythm, if there's going to be an upset in that reliability, the reliability that the chairman of the Federal Reserve is going to be independent, is not going to be influenced or directed by any other outside entity.
By any political winds as in wind, or any political whims of some individual.
So if that is upset, or if that changes, or that is implied that could change, then the stock market, we talk about the stock market as this like living, breathing thing. So kind of think of it as like all the players in the stock market.
Right.
And there's small players like us, and then there's big players like institutional banks and and these giant enormous pension funds and these countries that invest, that invest their federal and state pension funds in the market.
Yep.
The market doesn't like that. The market doesn't like that kind of, wait a minute, that means that I can't be sure that the interest rates will change because of some outside influence.
Well, some outside influence that's based on nothing but just some random response to who knows what. And let's talk about, because you and I have talked about this in the show before, let's talk about the last two major shocks to the system, right? All the last three major shocks to the system, right? You had COVID, right?
Yep.
So we talked about this on the show. We were doing the show as remote could be, right? And we said, I'll never forget this. I could tell you exactly where I was
love
sitting
those
when we
old
had this
COVID
conversation.
remote shows.
But we were sitting there and we were saying, this too shall pass,
Yep.
but we don't know when. So there was a predictable unpredictability to that, right? And we kind of said, look, at some point, people way smarter than us are going to figure this out, and then the economy can plan for what this looks like. I'm not saying that wasn't a negative, that didn't have a negative impact on the economy. I said we have history to go back and say, well, what happened the last time this happened? What happened when the flu epidemic hit in 1918? What happened? How were industries affected? What industries will benefit, unfortunately, from what's going on right now? Is it the farmer industries? Is it the biotech industries? Is it medical delivery? There were people that were out there saying, look, the economy's tanking, but these companies, because of what's going on, are a place that we can look to put some money. Right?
Yeah, there's gonna be places where there's going to be opportunity investments that we'll be able, we as whatever the investing entity is, can take advantage of,
right?
And be like, hey, this is a good, and that's their job. Like their job is to try and grow money, is to try and preserve and increase the capital.
But there was a shock to the system, and then there was this predictably unpredictable rebound to that says, okay, first everybody stay home, then everybody can go out but stay 6 feet apart and wear masks. Then we're only letting a certain amount of people in stores at a time to keep social distancing. Put aside for 1 second whether or not you thought that was a good idea or a bad idea, whether you agree with that politically, personally. Either way, there was a process in place to address those concerns and keep things kind of on pace.
Yep, and the the $1 trillion question was when was the pandemic going to be under control? When did we have, like we said, like when is there going to be kind of an end in sight? The when, right?
Yep.
We made the assumption, and we all kind of made the assumption that it's going to happen. It's not if It's just when.
We talked about this on the show. We said at some point there will be an end. We could be halfway there,
Yep.
but we didn't know. We said we don't know what the halfway point is because we don't know what the end looks like, but we will know what the end looks like. And eventually, we did know what the end looks like.
And you know, so the frustrating thing about that is that so this was. No one saw this coming. This wasn't like this wasn't like a terrorist attack or anything like this. This just happened, right? This unfortunately happened, and you know we all know the story of the pandemic. So this wasn't like this was something that happened, and then the world reacted to it. The governments reacted to it, and when this was going to we were going to be on the other side of it, that was the big question.
That's right.
Same thing happened with the housing collapse in 2008,
Yep.
right? So that was the the other big significant market event. And again, that was a systematic kind of a bunch of things.
That was a systematic failure. People it was the very typical, all trees grow to the sky, right?
Yep.
People thought this would go on forever. It didn't.
Yeah.
Some smart people figured out that it wasn't going to do this.
Yeah, and it was, and so what had happened was and this is again, that you could blame the banks, you could blame the the lending industry.
Yep.
In the sense that everybody was just getting flippant about, hey, no matter what, everybody's going to pay their mortgage, and then they created these securities, these kind of bundled securities.
Watch The Big Short.
Yeah.
Explain the whole thing.
Yeah. So, but again, this was something that it happened. It was driven by kind of some like a series of events, series like kind of perfect storm, unfortunate
market
events.
conditions, call it what you want.
And
Yep.
it happens, and then it was like, okay, well, what is going to be the other side of
Right.
it? And then, part of the unpredictability of that was how much are the world governments going to kind of play in this? Like which banks, and we all know what happened. Like some of the banks, they said, well, sorry, Bear Stearns, you guys are out of
Lehman,
business.
you had a great run. You're not going to survive.
Good.
Yep.
Some of the other guys, because they had a little bit more, because there was more at stake with these other. They were like,
Sure.
all right, well, we're going to help these guys out, and and again, you can argue that whether how that was handled, if there was the right thing or the wrong, or should the governments just kind of let everything fail
Sure.
and kind of start from scratch. But again, these were all things that just kind of happened because.
But there's a
for
response
events.
to what we just talked about. There were opportunities in that environment because people would say, when these things happen, bad things happen over here, potentially good things happen over here. This is where we can kind of map this out, right? Same exact thing we just talked about, right?
Right. So if a bank that is still in business, if a bank that has the capability to borrow money and lend money and make money,
We can evaluate their balance sheet. This makes sense. We know what the numbers. We're dealing with facts, right?
Yeah.
We're dealing with facts, and these facts can allow us to come to some type of conclusion that will allow us to take a certain type of action. Okay. So that's the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here we are.
And so now we have today, right? Now we have today, which is things are being decided with zero thought, whatever, based on anything fact-based. We can talk about it all day long. Go back and read the headlines. Go back and read the news. They're just making it up as they go along, and the market is saying, WTF? How do we respond to you just making stuff up and then try to evaluate that in terms of how that impacts other things?
Yeah, and I think again, just as kind of reading the room on this or reading the tea leaves on this, is that it's okay. So it's a power play, right? So now the United States, where we always relied on the United States that we were going to, of course, be friends and supportive of everything that has to do with Western Europe. Of course, we're going to be friends and supportive economically, socially, militarily to Canada, to Mexico, right?
Yeah, all these countries that have been our trading partners and our partners and everything.
This is how the United States does business, and it's all and also the fact that the United States does business with countries that don't have the same economic capability that the United States have. So when a country such as Vietnam says, "Hey," in order for us to do business with you, you need to pay us a little bit more than we need to pay you in order to do business, right?
Sure.
And make no mistake about it, the United States does this not because they're just out of the pure generosity of their heart, not because the United States says we're great and we just want to help everybody. Don't get me wrong, the United States kind of they position themselves like that, and that's part of kind of our shtick. However, the United States, they do this. The United States makes sure that a country such as Vietnam or a country such as, the Czech Republic, those countries, there's a reason why we want to stay friends with them.
Sure.
There's a reason we want them to feel like we're the good guys.
Yes.
Like a country, because you know why? Because down the road, who knows when? Down the road, there may be a situation where there's some potential threat to the United States down the road. This is how the United States operates. Remember Somalia, right? Remember when the United States committed forces to Somalia? You think we did it because we have a huge Somalian population here in the United States? No, we did it because it was a strategic place.
Sure.
And this is how the United States operates, and they do it. We've done it for since World War II because we're the richest guys.
Right.
We get the most money.
These strategic partnerships have paid off for all the right reasons, and we've done it for a whole bunch of reasons. We can debate the economics aspect of it all the time, and we can debate the political aspects of it all the time. They are interlinked,
Yeah.
right? You can't separate the two.
They're absolutely interlinked. And so what's kind of happening now is this. Hey, the United States. Well, why are we picking up the tab for all this stuff in Europe? Why are we picking up the tab for all this stuff in Southeast Asia? Why, these guys need to power up. These guys need to pay us back. And this is kind of the basis of this whole kind of tariff party.
Right, but here's the part that people will think I'm insane about, right? I'm not even suggesting that can't happen, right? I am not suggesting for anybody who listens to this, I am not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that we don't have an ability to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay? But there's an entire way that this should happen. And by the way, one of the ways that it's not supposed to happen is it's not an edict from the big White House down in Washington, D.C., that this is what's supposed to happen. There is a structure, right? There is a governmental structure to how all of this is supposed to happen. And it goes back to what we started talking about in the show about who has the authority to even say these things. Not only who has the authority to actually then turn around and implement these things, right? So when you have somebody waving around the threat of firing, the head of your Federal Reserve System, or you have somebody waving around this idea that I'm going to literally stick 100% tariff on every single thing that walks in the door without necessarily having the authority to do it. And by the way, I'm just going to do this, and let's just see what happens to the market.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to change my mind, and then I'll back
90
off.
days. I'm going to hold this off for 90 days. I want to do this. I want to be an agent of chaos, right? I want to put everybody who, by the way, there's a whole bunch of folks that might listen to the show that are 5 years away from retirement, right? That 6 months ago were sailing along, happily looking through brochures, figuring out where they're going to downsize to, what that Viking River cruise might look like, when am I going to schedule that? And now they're not doing that. They're not doing that because the uncertainty that has been introduced into this situation and into this system is making it, it's not that we always said the market is definitely unpredictable. It's predictably unpredictable. This is a level of unpredictability that has no.
There's no foundation.
That's right. There's no foundation in this anywhere in the middle in our history to just come along and be this reckless about our own system. It just makes no sense to me. And you saw it this week when the backpedaling began about Jerome Powell.
Yeah.
And let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about that.
All right, we're gonna talk about this unpredictable. We're gonna talk about the how.
I'm going to predict that we're going to talk about this after the break. That's my prediction.
I agree with that prediction, but we're gonna talk about how it's different now and why this feels different than just your regular market ups and downs. Don't go away.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Manafort Financial.
Got a thumbs up
Tom
from Tom
here, making us look skinny and slender on screen, taking those 5 pounds off us, making us look good. And we're talking about the very exciting, the very unpredictable predictability of what's gone on in the last couple of weeks with the markets, specifically around this tariff mumbo jumbo and the most recent, threat to fire Jerome Powell as the head of the Fed. This is probably the most sort of economically heady we've been on this show in a while,
Yeah.
but we thought we owe it to you because
time.
it's on everybody's mind.
It's time.
So what I was saying before the break was you saw it this week. So, Monday, I think Jerome Powell should be fired. I'm going to put it out. I'm going to run the government.
But and the reason being is because he's not lowering the interest rates.
He's not doing what they want. He's not doing what they want.
He's not right. And just to be clear, so everybody understands. So the administration throws all these tariff threats out, and it affects the stock market, and it affects the global
in a very negative way.
It affects the global economy. So their response is, well, you know what? We're gonna give everybody a break, and we're gonna say, if the interest rate's lower, then that'll make things a little easier. It'll settle the market. The market will react to a lowering of the interest rates, meaning it's going to be easier to borrow money. It's going to be easier for corporations to borrow money. It's going to be easy for people to buy, like people are buying houses. Right. It's going to be easier if the interest rates come lower. However,
by the way, do you know why it needs to be easier to afford all those things and bring those rates down? Because tariffs are going to make all the prices go up.
So again, it's all it's all this kind of political play to kind of justify this, all the things that we're threatening to do. But what happens is, remember for many years, and we've talked about on the show for more than 10 years, we're like, hey, be a little nervous about bonds because you know what? The interest rates are really low right now. We think they're going to come up. Eventually they're going to come up. And the reason interest rates come up is to counteract inflation. And this is the balance. And remember the administration's like, they're running as like, hey, the reason things are so bad and we need to make America great again is because of inflation. Because the inflation's so bad. Look at this inflation. So the fact that now they want to lower the interest rates, or
inflation, by the way, down at the mid to high twos now.
Yeah, so now we want to lower the interest rate in order to what? In order to help the stock market. But you know what that's not going to do? It's not going to help your inflation.
No.
It's going to have a counterbalance, a counter effect, which is why Jerome Powell's sitting here looking, and Jerome Powell's doing his job and saying, look, we have to keep an eye on it. Inflation's still there, and we don't want it to go up anymore. Like
the Fed's target's 2% for inflation. That's their target inflation rate, 2%. So they're over that, but they brought it way down. And yes, admittedly, it was much higher at one point during the Biden administration. We hadn't seen that type of inflation for years. But it came down. That was all based on some pent-up supply chain stuff, still related to like the tail end hangover effect of COVID. And it worked itself through the system. I'm not saying it wasn't real. It was real. But now
and a big part of that was because the interest rates came up.
Yeah.
Because the Fed has steadily increased interest rates. We're not talking 1983 interest rates, but the interest rates have come up. And
they had been so low that it made that was really, that's kind of the Fed's only bullet, right? So if rates are super low, they're not going to go into negative interest rates,
nope.
Right? I mean, it happens. It happened in Japan,
yeah.
But it doesn't. But they don't want to do that. So the Fed was saying, look, at some point, rates have to come back up, right? We've been subsidizing this low rate environment.
And they say it, and it's not like they don't surprise you.
No, they say it, and
rates
then
are coming up.
Yes. And then there's a meeting, and the Fed comes out, and they say, hey, we just talked about rates. Guess what? As discussed, rates are going to go up 1/4 percentage point. And the market, you know what the market does? The market does nothing.
Yeah,
you know why the market does nothing?
Okay.
Because we've known that. Because they've signaled it. It's been predicted.
The market's priced for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what we're looking at now is this whole combative thing about whether or not the administration doesn't like the fact that the Fed is not lowering interest rates because they want them to, and that's what this whole kerfuffle is about. And then comes the threat. And then comes the threat of, he needs to go. He needs to be fired. And this is just so everybody understands what happens because then what happens is not only the United States, but then the whole entire world loses faith in the United States debt system.
Well, they lose faith in the United States it's the bellwether, right? Everything is based off of what's the U.S. like?
Of course,
they're the deepest pocket, right?
And in the beginning of the show we talked about this is the reliability.
Yes.
So we rely on the market, us investors,
Treasury securities backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. You know what that means? That means that when the bill comes due, the U.S. is going to pay it. Right? You lent us money. We are going to pay you. We are the best creditor you could ever have, bar none. Nobody else. You take this to the bank. Literally take this to the bank.
Because we are the bank.
Yes.
Yeah. The Federal Reserve. This is the bank, right? and everything we have is by the taxing power of the United States government. So if countries or other, the rest of the world loses faith in our capability to do that correctly, or to do that fairly, or to do that as we always have been doing it before, they're gonna sell. They're going to say, I'm not putting money into U.S. Treasuries.
No.
I'm not buying a 10-year Treasury bond from the United States. And it's not like
because I might not get paid my money back.
It's not like I have $10,000 invested. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. So if this happens, and again, you'll hear it right here. If this happens and the world loses faith, you're going to see a stock market. You're going to see an economy.
Stock market. You're going to see economic Armageddon. Economic Armageddon.
Like you haven't seen before. And again, this is driven by this idea that we're going to bully these countries into paying us tariffs. We're going to like set this up, and we're going to like, you guys are going to end up paying because the government, because we as the United States, we're sick of picking up the bill.
Read any article by an economist worth their salt, right? Not, and again, someone's going to say, well, you're going to pick these certain people. They think this. There's a fair amount of people. Let's talk about people who are recognized in the industry as kind of know
who do
what's
it for a
going on,
living.
kind of know what they're talking about, right? They will tell you that this whole idea that this tariff scheme is going to somehow enrich us. It is not. It's fallacy. It's lunacy. It's crazy talk. And it's not going to, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and the whole idea of like, the idea of, well, we're seeing it right now because some of these countries are paying tariffs on this and that and the other thing. No, you're not. No one's, It's not like the countries are like getting their checkbook and writing bigger checks right now. It's not like the country pays the tariff. It's the companies that are doing business.
The government's throwing out these insane dollar figures that they're going to collect the tariffs. Then you go back and look at the actual numbers of what they're collecting, and they're not collecting anywhere near what they said they were going to collect in tariffs. Nowhere near. It's just malarkey.
But it's political malarkey.
Yes.
And this is
and it's dangerous.
And right. So it's one thing to say, hey, if Jay and I are running against one another, and I say that he's not as good a golfer as he thinks he is, and he says that you're not as good a guitar player as you think you are. That's one thing. But when you start kind of playing this political game and being like, okay, now we're going to do things that are going to affect the global economy, and the global economy trickles down into like the company. So think of a company that does international trade. So if I'm a company that does international trade, and now I'm like, well, wait a minute, there's some tariff thing that's
Sure.
getting threatened to do. But our plan was over the next 3 quarters is we were going to build this factory here. We were going to hire this many more employees here. Am I going to do that now? Of course I'm not.
No. Do you know why you're not going to do it now?
Because you don't know.
Because you can't make any business decisions off of this. Give a monkey a gun philosophy to the U.S. and the economic system. So you're not going to do those things.
You're not going to bet on that.
Unpredictable.
You can't bet on it.
You can't bet on it. You don't know what to expect. So you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to keep my powder dry. I'm going to wait until things become a little bit more predictable, and then I'm going to make those decisions. Then I'm going to make those investments.
Yeah,
this doesn't help anybody.
Right, and what happens is like as these companies are kind of sitting like biding and waiting their and trying to just let me know when you think this is a good idea, then people that are employment rates are going to change. People that are affected by federal government, like federal employees, like, oh, we're going to cut federal employees. We're going to cut these guys.
Mark my word. You're going to read in 6 months. You're going to read about what the impact of all these federal layoffs has done to fill in the blank. It's going to be some sector. It's going to be the housing market in D.C., the housing market in Virginia. It's going to be the restaurant, hospitality, food industry in those areas, or where these people live and used to work. And now they're laid off. And so what's the first thing you don't do when you get laid off?
You don't spend money.
You don't say, let's go out for dinner
No.
5 nights a week. None of that is going to happen. All of that is, I worked in downtown Boston when Fidelity was in every single building. Everywhere you went, every single thing in town was affected by Fidelity's fortunes.
Right.
And then they start moving people out to Marlboro and Smithfield. And so that's a game changer. That's not all these people flooding into downtown Boston to work and spend money. It doesn't work that way. And this is going to be the same thing.
Right, and that whole trickle down effect of how everything's going to get affected by this, but the question is, for what? what's the end game on
Sure.
this? What's the end state? And is the end state, well, the United States has this multi-trillion-dollar debt that we need to bring down. Sure, that's something, but is that something that you're going to fix by charging Vietnam 20 cents on the dollar for whatever we take from Vietnam, or even better, going toe to toe with China in a manufacturing war? Are
Sure.
we going to be able to? Do you really think that in the United States and our 300 million people, it's not like we don't have the numbers that countries like China or India have. So our 300 million, do you think we're going to start building factories that are going to build Halloween costumes and things like that?
Right, that's right. Yeah, Spirit Halloween. They can open a big manufacturing center somewhere down in Texarkana. I don't know.
And if I'm a business owner, if I'm a manufacturer, am I going to invest in that? I mean, am I going to make money on that?
Well, not am I going to make money on that, but am I going to do that knowing how unpredictable everything that's being put together is? So I don't know if I'm going to get the financing. I don't know what my rates are going to look like. I don't know what the international shipping costs are going to look like. I have no idea what my labor costs are going to be because some people are getting hired, some people are getting fired.
I know what they're not going to be. They're not going to be what it is if I have to compete with somebody overseas.
No. What am I going to pay? What's prevailing wage? What am I going to have to? Is it a union shop? Is it not a union shop? Like a lot of those jobs that aren't here for a whole bunch of reasons that kind of make sense.
Yeah. And again, it all comes back to if you're a company, if you're a business, your number one thing that you need to do is make money.
That's right.
You have to make money. You have to make a profit, because if you don't make a profit, then you are running a charity.
And it's a hobby. Then it's a hobby.
Yeah, so everybody gets, these big businesses, make no mistake about it, companies need to make money.
Yes.
Because if they don't make money, then they're not a business, and they're not going to be able, whatever they're making or whatever service they're providing, they're not going to be able to do it, and you're not going to get it. So if you're a company, a company has to be able to make money. And if I'm a business owner, and whether I'm a manufacturer, whether I provide a trade service or anything that I do, if the foreseeable future where I'm not sure I'm going to make money, I'm not going to invest in that.
Well, not only am I not sure that I'm going to make money, but first of all, just to put a shovel in the ground, right? Just to get some of these projects started is going to take 5 years, right? Yeah. Between your permitting issues. Now, again, the feds might come in and say, we're going to streamline all the permitting, blah, blah, blah. We're getting rid of the EPA. We don't care about the Clean Water Act anymore. You can do it. You can do whatever you want to do. Maybe not. I don't know. Either way, this is what has to happen, right? So you might not even open the doors for another administration, which may not even have anywhere near the same fantasy land approach to running the government that this one has. And so all of that you took time to build, all those assumptions you made out the window.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Sure.
Take a quick break. We'll come back because I want to touch on one more point that you had alluded to earlier about how all the changes that are going on right now. Like what's the bottom line? What's the impact of
this?
What's
the takeaway?
All right,
that's the one you want to hear.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Manhattan Financial. Tom is with us in the studio today, and we're getting a little into it. This might leave a mark.
I think about it all the time.
Talking about tariffs. Talking about the lunacy that's going on right now. The market up, market down, market up, market down. I think the $64,000 question is, what do you tell people?
So here's where we're at, right?
Okay.
So again. I don't know what's going to happen. I make no claims to have any idea of what's going to happen. But so from a positioning standpoint, I don't want to. I haven't sold everything, right?
Sure.
Like we're not like,
sure.
Hey, run away.
Yeah, let's go
run
to
away.
Cash.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
And I tell people, like, look, if I knew that the market was going to crash tomorrow, I'd sell, right? Yeah. I mean, if I knew that, but I don't know that, and there's no indicator that says this is going to happen.
Sure.
But what I don't know, and again, this comes back to kind of we alluded to the COVID example. In COVID, when COVID first started to come about and it started to become this real thing, that's when I was like, well, I felt the same. I'm like, I don't know about this. I truly don't know, and I don't think anybody knows. And there were people that claim, well, this is going to happen, this is that.
Look, for as long as we've both been in the business, every once in a while something pops up and you say to yourself, I've definitely never seen this before.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in that case,
that was my first global pandemic.
So in that case, yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen this. Yeah, I wasn't around in 1912 when that flu epidemic came out. So I like the idea of kind of having some dry powder. You alluded to dry powder, having some dry powder, just in the case of, again, life goes on.
Yes.
People who are generating income, they still need to generate income. They're people who are trying to grow their portfolio and so they can retire at some point. All that stays the same. But the idea of, okay, maybe I'm just going to, and remember, we were at an all-time market high or on or about in the beginning of this year.
Yes, we were. Yes.
So we're talking about we've had a run.
Yeah.
So if I take a little, if we've taken a little of those gains and kind of say, okay, let's kind of put this on the sideline and maybe let's kind of wait to see how this plays out a little bit. This is and that's okay, because again, based on the unreliability of kind of what's going on, I'm happy to kind of wait a little bit longer. And I think, and I don't think I'm alone. I think this is a.
I agree with you. I think that this is, we try to say, look, we tell people all the time, I don't know what the thing is going to be, right? Global pandemic, housing crisis, some type of, geopolitical issue. I don't know what the thing is going to be, right? That's right. So this is the thing. I didn't know what it was going to be. This is the thing. Our response to the thing is the same, right? Make sure your allocation's lined up. Make sure you're comfortable with where you are. If you turn around and tell me, look, I'm really uncomfortable, that's a different animal. That's a change. Yep. It's a fundamental change in your risk tolerance, your risk profile. That could mean a change. But other than those things being not changed, if you're in the same position, this is a kind of ride this out. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. There's going to be certainly some sleepless nights. But I think that there'll be some bright spots in there. We've talked about it. There are some sectors that, even through all this chaos, have done well, and that's where the diversification helps. And you have to look a little harder to see that that's actually happened. When you look at your portfolio and you feel like, oh my God, I'm really getting beat up. If you break it down by sectors, you might say, oh, I didn't realize that my tech holdings did this, my pharma holdings did this, my consumer durables. There'll be some bright spots in there. So you just need to kind of look at those and say, okay, there's some positivity here. It's a little harder to find out in this environment, unlike what it was in the beginning of the year when you just felt like everything's great. Everything's great, everything's up, I feel like $1 million.
And from an investor standpoint, again, your risk, it's your money. We tell our clients this too. It's your money. So if you feel uncomfortable, then talk to your guy, talk to your person, and say, look, I'm uncomfortable about this. I want to. And we've had clients. I'm sure you've had the same thing where clients have been like, hey, you know what? I just want to wait. I'm a little nervous about it.
I have the stomach for it.
And then we talk about it. And we kind of talk about kind of what that means, what that doesn't mean, and all that. I think the big takeaway is you always. It's never just like fire and forget.
I agree.
I don't think that's the way to do it. I think it's times like these where it's really good to sit down and look and evaluate everything. And remember, everything has a purpose. So if my purpose of this is in 20 years, I'm going to use this particular account to subsequent or to provide retirement income for me, then. Great. Then that's a 20-year play, and so I'm not going to. I don't need this anytime soon.
No,
right?
Understood. That's always the question.
If the market drops 20% tomorrow, is it going to be fun to look at that? Is it going to be fun to open up my statement? Of course it's not. But if I know that, look, that's okay, and I'm comfortable with like the things that I own inside of that. I'm comfortable in that, and I believe in like the United States and the global economy that there's going to be a recovery.
Well, they're going to figure out the bluff, and they're going to say, look, you know what? Now that unpredictability becomes predictable. We know that what's going to happen is you're going to make these pronouncements. And then you're going to step back a couple of steps because you're going to realize how unpopular it is. And then we're just going to start ignoring you because you're cried wolf too many times, and we're just going to move on around you.
Yeah,
that's potentially where it goes.
And that's kind of that's a very potential logically way that all this could kind of work itself out. Again,
Talk to your people.
nobody knows.
Yep,
Nobody knows what's
Yep.
going to happen. But this is even more reason to take a close look and make sure that all your purposes and for all of the things that all of your investments, you understand what they are and
Sure.
and understand what your risk level is.
Gotcha. With you, buddy.
Okay.
All
All right. So on that note, next time I said I threw it out there. Bring the music.
All right, we'll talk. We'll
All right,
talk. We'll see.
We'll talk. You're gonna tune your guitar.
All right,
Yeah, you
takes a
tune
while.
Tune your
All those
32
extra
string
strings.
guitar.
Takes
All
a while.
Thanks for joining us on Money in Law. Welcome everybody back. Tommy, Jay.
Great to
we'll
be back.
see-
Great to
we'll
be
see
back.
everybody next time on Money in Law. Have a
Have a great
day.
week, everybody.